This time, Blackburn Rovers, team that Jack built.
No, nay, never. No, nay, never, no more. 'Cause I'll stay a wild rover forever and more.
Hello and welcome to By Far the Greatest Team, a podcast in which football fans attempt the seemingly impossible to once and for all determine who is the greatest team of all time. My name's Graham Dunn, and joining me as ever is in our data corner of the world is Jamie Rooney.
Data corner, which gives me a great opportunity to relive one of my data statistics that I shared just a couple of episodes ago. I think, it was the last episode with Southampton, and the 3 points for a win scenario. The team we're going to talk about tonight, Blackburn Rovers, had 2 points for a win still be in play, wouldn't have won this Premier League title in 94-95. They would have lost out on goal difference to Manchester United.
Yes, a bit of wishful thinking, I think. Yes, we are going to look at Blackburn Rovers. Whenever we go into the Northwest, we always, whether he likes it or not, we call on Declan Clark. Hi, Declan, how are you doing?
All right, guys, how are you?
We're going to be talking about Blackburn. There's one character who really springs to mind as having a bit of a shared history with Everton, and that's Howard Kendall, isn't it?
Yeah, he was the player manager for a couple of seasons. This is the back end of the 70s, early 80s, just before he came to us. I remember watching it. They're actually knocking on the door. They got really, really, very, very close indeed to coming up. I think they finished fourth in his final season. And you wouldn't say this is a great side he's built by any means, but I mean, him being the back of him, he just added a bit of class. He was kind of the way, it was kind of the same thing that Hoddle did at Swindon. He was just sort of in front of the back four, just spraying passes around. I mean, it was lovely to watch. One guy I do remember from that time, well, actually, another guy he had playing for him at one point was Duncan McKenzie.
Of course.
Absolutely.
Mini. The guy who jumps over minis.
Yeah, he used to jump over minis. That was his party piece, yeah. And turning Tommy Smith inside out several times. He used to love doing that. Much to Tommy Smith's chagrin, he used to just pick him up in the air when he got better. The guy I always remember who played for him at that time, there was a guy called Noel Brotherston. There was a winger.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you guys, probably before your time, but yeah. He was possibly the most unlikely looking footballer ever. He looked like Larry from the Three Stooges. Seriously, go and Google a pic of him and you'll just see the resemblance. Notwithstanding that, though, I mean, he played for Spurs as well. He was a really, really handy player, winger, really skillful, cultured, and he was taken away from us far too young. Actually, just after he retired, he became a painter and decorator around Blackburn, and he died when he was 38. Unfortunately, he had a heart attack.
Oh, wow.
It's a very sad story, but yeah, he was a great player, and he was such a key player for them at that time. Added a little bit of class into that midfield for him.
Oh, yeah, I can see what you mean about the Three Stooges reference now.
Yeah, doesn't he?
Somewhere between the Three Stooges and Art Garfunkel.
Yeah.
Blackburn, they're an interesting side, and this story is particularly interesting because of Jack Walker, and actually the way, to some extent, that story was perceived at the time, which was kind of money bags. They bought the title, which, when you look at what's subsequently happened across football everywhere, it's quite strange that this. I always find it quite strange that Blackburn are picked out in that way, although it is, it almost feels like they're being singled out. But I guess one of the reasons they would be, I mean, Blackburn are, they're a big, really established club with a fabulous history and heritage. But Jamie, it's quite a long time since they were actually involved at the higher echelons of anything.
Yeah, I mean, you have to go all the way back to the 1920s for their last FA Cup, I think. Or there may have been one in the 30s, possibly. But they're a founding member, Football League founding member. When the Football League was formed in 1888, Blackburn Rovers was there, a town in Lancashire. and they were one of the first clubs. And yeah, they won 5 league titles. They won all 5 league titles before the 1900th year, those. They're all in the 19th century, Blackburn's league titles. So when they did get the investment from Jack Walker, and you're right, Graham, it's bizarre to think now that in the world that we live in, where football ownership seems to be the popular thing for the wealthy, the multi-billionaires around the world, Jack Walker there's a bit of kind of disdain against him, even though what he was doing was highly credible. He's a local boy done well, invested in his local team. I mean, if you reflect on that, what's not to like? And generally, football teams, the richest football teams throughout history, have generally been the ones that have dominated anyway. So whether you get a big investment or a mild investment, if you're a big team with investment, you're generally going to dominate. But yeah, Blackburn Rovers are an established team. They won a few FA Cups. They've won 5 league titles, but all in the 19th century, the league title prior to this incredible season in the mid-90s.
We talk about Jack Walker being the money bags who bought the title for him. Just to put it in some context, his personal wealth at that time was estimated at about £150 million, which, it's not a small chunk of change, but it's probably about the same as the Euro Millions jackpot that we've got this week. You look at it like that. It's not a huge amount of money by today's standards. It wouldn't buy you a player now.
It wouldn't buy you the top of the range player, that's for sure.
It wouldn't.
I don't know if either of you are familiar with this. When they were relegated in 1947-48, burying a coffin tradition apparently began. Have you come across this?
Yeah, I saw something about it today. Is it them and Preston who do this?
Them and Preston?
I think them and Preston, they've sort of joined forces and they do the same thing. There's some pub, I can't remember the name of it. But basically, they carry a coffin to this pub and they lower the coffin when they've been relegated.
It's too good. Yes, they bury a coffin in the cellar of the Trades Hall Club in Bamber Bridge. So, I think that's right, because you have open top bus parades and so forth when you win the title. I think relegation should be marked with a sorrowful funereal march.
What would be the years? Would it be the year that they started in the division they got relegated from, and the death year would be the year they get relegated?
Yeah, I think it has to be. We'll come on to the background of Jack Walker's involvement and this story in particular. But I was struck by this was their first bit of silverware for 50, 60 years. But except people seem to be underestimating the 1987 Full Members Cup win that they had.
We're back into that wonderful period where English football teams cannot compete in European games. And it's the era of the Full Members Cup, the Simod Cup.
You'll be surprised to learn that Blackburn knocked Oxford out on there. Although I think it was a nice sort of a cup final victory against Charlton at Wembley in 1987. There's some success still at that club. Also known as the Simod Cup and the Zenith Data Systems Cup. That's one of the created after the Heysel Stadium and a disaster after European clubs were semi-finals took place in 86 and 92. Blackburn and Reading were the only second division teams that won the cup. So there you go. So on such things, Blackburn have a legacy and history of victories. But Jamie, when Jack Walker comes to town, how are Blackburn? Where are Blackburn at that point?
Tier 2. And not doing too well. They've been in Tier 3 for a brief spell, and they've come back up. But they're not a team that look like they're going to be challenging for a Premier League title in the next few years, which incredibly they go on to do within, I think, the first 3 seasons of Jack Walker's money. They are finishing in the top 4 of the Premier League. But yeah, they're floating around near the bottom, actually, I think. Deck may have this better than I do, but I think they're near the bottom of Tier 2. League Division 2, as I think it was properly called at that time.
So yes, the fortunes really turn when Jack Walker comes to town. Now, Jack Walker's an interesting character. I kind of know of him a little bit from my other world, where he was, I knew him as the owner of what was Jersey European Airways and became British European and the Glorious Flybe until that that went, and that was all through the Jack Walker Trust. And Jack Walker, I kind of knew him for owning two things. One was the airline, and the other was Blackburn Rovers. But Deck, he's sort of was he a steel magnate or something, or a steel man come good?
Yeah, that's where I believe he made his fortune, and he ran a steel company, and as I say, his fortune was about 150 million, something like that, which is peanuts by today's standards. If you're looking at investing into a football club, we're talking about Qatari billions and stuff. But at the time, he's obviously self-made man, local businessman, got his heart in the club. Basically, he's everything you want in the chairman, really, if you're a provincial football club.
Yeah, because I think you'd had plenty of owners who are really attached to the club, who are kind of long-time supporters of local business. But it is difficult to think of another time when an owner so obviously this is pretty much the first owner who really goes for it, isn't it, in terms of financial investment, and decides I can make these dreams come true. It's something which countless other people have attempted none too successfully afterward.
There was an element to that with we'll go back to Everton again, shall we? Because let's face it, that's what I'm here for. But no, in the 60s, obviously with John Moores, who was the guy behind Littlewoods.
Yes, fools.
We were called the Mersey Millionaires because of him, and that's how we got the floodlights and stuff like that. But in fact, that was the only thing he really gave money towards the club, and that was quite a closely controlled financial arrangement that he had for those floodlights. What he did, though, was obviously he opened up a line of credit with the banks. So, yeah, I think you're right, Graham, that Jack Walker was probably one of the first, if not the first, guy to put his money where his mouth was, as it were, to such a large extent.
He comes in Blackburn and has a statement of intent appointing Kenny Dalglish as manager is, for what is a second-tier club, that's a real statement, isn't it?
It is, and Dalglish had obviously had success with Liverpool, and he'd had tragedy with Liverpool as well. We had the Hillsborough disaster during his tenure, and I think that knocked a lot of the stuffing out of him for Liverpool, frankly. He was close to all those families. He attended all the funerals. There was an awful lot of pressure on him at that point. And I think eventually it got to him, and he resigned sort of mid-season. It was after an FA Cup match against us where it finished 4-4. They'd taken the lead 4 times, and we pegged them back 4 times.
I remember that game.
Yeah, it was fantastic. But after that, he just decided, well, I think that's enough. But the desire to manage a club never went away from it. And I think this gave him a fresh start with obviously a lot less pressure. Pressure in turn of the wanting to deliver for the owner, but obviously because, it's pressure at Blackburn's one thing, pressure at Liverpool is quite another. So, yeah, I think he saw that as a fresh start and something he was eager to get his teeth into.
Capturing Dalglish as a manager is a statement of intent. And I think when you hear the accounts from Kenny Dalglish and also Alan Shearer, they talk about how impressed they were by Jack Walker and his vision. And he literally was the local boy that wanted to turn his local team into the best team in the country. And he definitely had desires for the European Cup. I think that ambition must have came across, because that was definitely one of the key reasons in terms of getting Kenny Dalglish, I believe, his vision and outlaying his vision to convince Kenny Dalglish to come down to a second-tier team that's not guaranteed for promotion into the Premier League, and to convince him to take that job after he's left Liverpool. You must have some charisma about you in order to achieve that type of thing.
I've seen some today with interviews with players like Stuart Ripley and Steve Sutton.
Chris Sutton.
That's me. Chris Sutton, sorry. Chris Sutton, sorry. Why did I get Steve Sutton? He was a Forest keeper, wasn't he? Yeah, he was a Forest keeper, yeah. And Tim Flowers and Stuart Ripley, they will talk about later probably. Yeah, they were all saying exactly the same thing. I mean, obviously they'd, by the time, I think Ripley actually came when they were still in the lower tier, but I mean, those players coming in, some of them came in when they'd actually made it into the top flight. But again, it was the same kind of thing. They all said that they were impressed by the vision of the owner and, you know, what he was going to do with the club, what he's going to do with the ground and so on and so forth. And they all wanted to buy into that. And that's why, you know, that they bought into it themselves.
And it's the speed of it as well, isn't it? He takes over in October 91 and they're promoted almost immediately to the Premier League. And then they're competing to win the Premier League almost straight away. It's the speed of that vision and how it's translated, which is just incredible.
I mean, you're right. It's interesting. It's a very sort of talismanic effect when he joins. Although, in fact, Blackburn, they only just sort of scraped through. You know, they finished, I think, sixth in the playoffs. It's a Mike Newell goal in Newell.
Sixth indeed, yeah.
Mike Newell goal in the playoffs. So it's, you know, there's a potential. You know, it almost doesn't happen. But you're right. From the moment they're sat in the Premier League, which has been established by then, hasn't it? I think we're in Premier League territory. They sort of immediately kind of fit in, and I suppose maybe it's not that much a surprise. You know, I was looking at some of the. I mean, obviously we'll talk a lot about quite a few of the signings that they bring in, but you know, they do have Colin Hendry and David May and Sherwood's at them at this stage, and Scott Sellers. You know, so they've got quite a few of the players who will go on to be part of. Jason Wilcox is there as well. Players who will be significant in that Premier League success, but it's definitely true that they supplement that with some quite significant signings, of which Shearer probably has to be the standout, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, he may be the standout, but I think he did sign the wrong Shearer initially, didn't he? Yeah, if you look through the squads, you'll see a Shearer before Alan Shearer called Duncan Shearer was there for the season, and I think it is kind of in the way that Real Madrid were allegedly signing the wrong Baldy when they signed Gravison. They actually wanted Carsley. You can imagine, let's sign Shearer, and they called up and go, oh, here it is. No, not that one. Off for Southampton.
Well, we got the old Swindon player. We don't want this.
And Duncan Shearer, bless him, I think he only played 6 games for Blackburn and scored just the 1 goal. So I think he definitely was the wrong Shearer in terms of the signings. But just going back before pre-Shearer, though, you're right. They do have a tidy team. But they, in the early 90s, when the Walker's money is just about arriving, they pick up some savvy signings as well, because Gordon Cowans goes there. Gordon Cowans was an absolutely wonderful midfield footballer, luxury player. And I think that experience is what's required as well. So when you're a team that's looking to battle out the lower reaches of the tier 2 and trying to get into the Premier League, you need players like that have that experience and quality that can compete in the second tier. And also, Graham, they had the wonderful, I mean, he was exchanged as part of the Shearer deal, the David Speedy, which, you know, gives us an opportunity to see whether we can breathe life into our normative determinism, which we pathetically made an attempt at a long time ago, where we asked the question, was David Speedy?
Well, later on they had Damien Duff, of course, didn't they? Let's just pause for a minute here, because this one might not make the edit, but they also had David Goodwillie. I'll just leave it there.
Who with everything went on, was anything but.
Actually, they also had, do you remember Alan Wright, the left back who played at Aston Villa?
Yes. Yes.
I don't know if I've got this right, but I think he's one of the smallest professional footballers to play in the Premier League.
5'4", yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, tiny. I can't think of anyone. Jeffrey Cucci, I don't know. Goodness me, I'm struggling to think of anyone sort of that small, really.
Well, I have a page here that tells me Premier League short players. Don't you just love the internet? And Alan Wright is actually not the smallest. He actually is 1 centimetre, 1 inch, sorry. He's 5 foot 4.
He's 5'4".
10 inches, yeah. I do centimetres. Yeah, Bernard was 5'3". But yeah, Alan Wright is in there. Ryan Fraser and Tariq Lamptey, 5'4". So he's not the smallest.
You're right. You're right. It was quite an experienced side that they have in there as well, with the likes of Roy Wegley and Mike Newell. So that was quite an established side. But obviously, Alan Shearer is the signing that is the real statement of intent. And I think I think that's probably where this money bag tag that goes to the team really kicks in, doesn't it? Because they essentially have Manchester United are interested in Shearer even at that point, I think. And Jack Walker's able to use his financial muscle to bring him in. It's not a auspicious start for him, isn't it? Because obviously he does his cruciate, I think, in the first season, misses half of that season. But Shearer's the kind of that just straight away that this Blackburn side is going to be a competitor at the top end of the table.
Despite the injury, you say he still chips in with 16 goals.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Which, it is crazy. It's I mean, the feat for them now. You'd look at it, you think. I mean, this just shows how football's moved on. 3.5 million. It was various reports and various things. It's 3.3, 3.4, 3.6, whatever. Let's go for 3.5 as an average. Right. So it was around about that ballpark.
Yeah, and it was a British record at the time, wasn't it? It actually broke the transfer record at that particular moment.
Correct. Yeah. So yeah, I mean that was a statement of intent. I mean, just looking back through that previous season, you say that. I mean, some of the players they had, they were very real household names. They had Mike Duxbury in there. They had Alan Irvine, who used to play for Everton in there. Kevin Moran. I mean, Kevin Moran, he was coming to the end of his career then, but what a career he'd had.
It was, and it's Kevin Moran that actually drew my attention to Blackburn Rovers, who I didn't really know much about as a kid, because he moved from Manchester United to Blackburn Rovers at the time as his career was winding down. And it was always one of those interesting moves that he's gone to a club that I didn't really know much about. Little did we know that he was going to be back in the Premier League with Blackburn. Although he plays a small part, he plays a small role.
Shearer's not the only significant signing they make in the summer, is it? I think, do they bring Lasso in at that point as well?
In that season, they brought in Shearer, they brought in Kevin Gallagher for $1.5 million. They brought in Stuart Ripley, they brought in Graham Lasso, they brought in Henning Berg, amongst others.
That's all in that first season in the Premier League.
92, 93.
That's 92, 93, yes.
Yeah. So you can start to see the makings. They had a lot of experience there, but they brought in some sort of star quality in there alongside Shearer. I mean, Ripley goes on to have a very successful time there. So successful as well. Henning Berg, one of a series of Blackburn players who go on to play for Man United at the end of this.
Well, David May had already moved as well. So David May was part of the Blackburn team coming up, and he had already shifted across before they go on to claim that one and only Premier League title.
So they finish fourth in their first season in the Premier League. Second season around. Now, it's an improved performance, isn't it? They finished second, I think, behind Man United, but they're quite a long way behind, aren't they? It's not. I think Man United have pretty much wrapped the title up by January almost, and it's quite a strong finish. But they're, it's still quite a feat for Blackburn to be second in the league at this stage.
They were around about 10 points behind, something like that. I can't remember exactly how many it was. It was around about 10 points. It might have been slightly different had they succeeded in signing Roy Keane.
Yes, that's a good point. Very good point.
Because Manchester United got in there to sign him from Forest. And had he gone to Blackburn instead, now that, one of the great what-ifs of football, that I think.
Yeah, and he came really close to signing from as well at the time. And it's kind of similar to the Shearer story. It's this kind of young talent playing at Forest. Keane was only 2021. Shearer was 2021 when he came to Southampton. So it's clearly the part of Jack Walker's strategy is to buy up the great prospects playing in the English Football League at the time.
Although the one player they do sign at the end of that season, which will lead us into obviously the season that we're going to focus on, I guess, is they spend £5 million on Chris Sutton.
They do. And I think they did that because Kevin Gallagher got injured, if I remember rightly. I could be wrong on that, but I think Gallagher was the second striker of Shearer. I think Gallagher injured, and I think then Sutton comes in. Chris Sutton fits into that bracket of central defender turned centre forward. Yeah. What a great category that is.
Yeah, the Paul Warhurst of...
They also signed.
Who was there as well, yeah. Who was there at the same time.
Scotland, they had Warhurst, they did, didn't they?
In that season, he played about 20-odd games in the 1994-95 season.
I mean, what's interesting is as a player, Gallagher and Sutton are very, very different types of player. So Gallagher, from my memory, Gallagher was like just all pace and quite small, and Chris Sutton was like a proper hold-up player, wasn't he?
I think it did. I think it did sort of change the way they played a little bit. I think what we saw in the 94-95 season was a very classically, almost a throwback English team with two centre forwards, two wingers, holding midfielders, strong central defence. It's it's that kind of thing. All of the goals are coming from out wide.
It's absolutely the same as what's going on with the rivals at the time, Manchester United, the team they're going up against. You've got these classic 4-4-2s, and the only big difference between the two teams is the way that they've structured the centre forwards. United are playing with almost a number 10 in Cantona, and then Blackburn have gone for two out-and-out physical number 9. But the whole team is super physical. And Deck, you're right, they've got Ripley and Wilcox as classic wingers. They've got the physical strength and endurance of Sherwood and Batty in midfield. And then you've got these beasts up front, these giants who can really mix up with the best of them, Shearer and Sutton. It's almost as British as you get.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sutton and not quite the same, but there's an element of the old Toshak and Toshak and Keegan almost there with the big target man in Chris Sutton. But Shearer, is more than capable of. I don't think he's a diminutive striker. He's more than capable of holding his own there. It is quite interesting. As you said, they spend that money on Chris Sutton, who I think might have been a transfer record at the time. But again, I don't want to keep playing this hand about money bags Blackburn and so forth, but they get this tag as spending their way there. But Man United go and spend $6 million on Andy Cole that season. They spend even more on a striker there. So it's not like they're doing anything that the rivals, their other teams, are spending big as well.
Yeah, I'm not sure that we've gotten to the age of the well, I guess we haven't the sort of profligacy at Chelsea by then. I guess we weren't quite at that stage, which started sort of in the Ken Bates era, and then when he sold to Abramovich, obviously, but we weren't quite at that stage then, but we're starting to see the dawn of this.
Yeah, and it's pre-Wenger as well. It's happening just a few seasons before Wenger comes along and changes lots of things.
Over that start to the season, they very quickly, Shearer and Sutton strike up a pretty impressive rapport. And you're right, there's an element which the goals have sort of come from them, but they're supplemented by Wilcox. There are goals all through that team.
Warhurst scored a few. Another name who it's actually amusing when you look back at the games. A guy called Mark Atkins who played in midfield for them, and he'd been there for quite a long time. It's sort of Jimmy Carr lookalike, as I recall. And he chipped in with a few, about half a dozen goals, crucial points. And every time he scored, the commentators would be like, "Oh, go from a most unlikely source there." He must have been getting paranoid every time he scored. And the commentators would say, "I'm sure Mark Atkins won't mind me saying this, but go from an unlikely source." It's like, what? But yeah, he chipped in with a lot. As I say, Warhurst did. Hendry did a few as well. And Lasso got a reputation as a free kick expert, which he sort of disavowed himself as. He said he scored a couple and then said, "Oh, everyone thinks I'm a free kick expert now, and I'm really not." But, yeah, so but I mean, you're right. In the most of it came from Shearer and Sutton, obviously 37 and 15 between them.
So their big rival at this point is Man United. So Jamie, you are probably quite familiar with this season, and there is not, Man United's been quite impressive in this period, and Man United are going quite well until tonight at Selhurst Park.
Yeah, I mean, Blackburn and United are going head-to-head this whole season, really, and it is a proper rivalry. And it's nice because it comes before the Newcastle rivalry, and then it's the Arsenal rivalry, and then it's the Chelsea rivalry, and what I'd kill for any rivalry now. It's like, but yeah.
You've got a good rivalry with Crystal Palace now.
We do. And on that topic, it's a January night, cold night in South London at the wonderful Selhurst Park, one of my favourite away football grounds. I think a ground not too far from where you are, Dec, as well. I mean, it could almost be.
Yeah, it's my nearest Premier ground. Yeah.
It's a wonderful, wonderful place. And Richard Shaw decided to absolutely kick the crap out of Eric Cantona for the whole game. Cantona didn't get the protection he probably should have had. He'd already had a reputation by this point. So decided to deal with it in his own way and gave Richard Shaw a little kick. Little did we know that was not going to be the only kick of the night. It'd go on and pick a fight with a football fan and kung fu kick him across the advertising board and had to get pulled away by his teammates.
So, yes. So that kind of, if you're in a 2-horse race for the title, that is something that might give you a bit of a leg up and a bit of optimism.
I think it's massive. And the ban, I don't know if you remember, Graham, the ban wasn't just a ban from games. It was a ban from all football. He wasn't even allowed to trade. It was something that had never been dished out on a player before. But then not many footballers get involved in fights with football fans in the actual football match. So I can understand the effect, give a punishment. But yeah, I mean, it's a tonic for Blackburn Rovers. It's an absolute tonic. You're going to be feeling upbeat when your nearest rivals has lost their best player and their talisman.
In terms of providing a corrective, as I'm going to do at this point, because there's no bias from Mr. Rooney in this whatsoever. Obviously,
indeed, I wouldn't say it.
Well, I would point out that by this point, Blackburn had won about 18 games. I think they'd drawn 2, and I think they'd only lost 2 or 3 by the time Cantona got banned. So it wasn't as if they were struggling for form themselves, No,
they do lose to. So Man United beat Blackburn the previous game, don't they? That's the game so Blackburn United actually do the double over Blackburn in that season. But they're you're absolutely right, Dec, that there's a level of consistency around that Blackburn side. I think they have a run of winning something like 11 out of 12 games for the Man United game that they win on the bounce between November and or late October and that January game. So they are the form team, and I kind of remember watching it on sort of Match of the Day in the evenings that Shearer and Sutton were just, they seemed to score broadly the same goals over and over.
They were absolutely electric. I mean, especially the first part of the season, you'd see the crosses just being fired in from Ripley and Wilcox. And the pair of them, as Jamie touched on, is like just classic wing players. I mean, Ripley in particular, if you're a defender, and we've all played against people, if you play right back or whatever, and there's this winger there, and you know what he's going to do, and yet you're powerless to do anything about it. And it's just so annoying to see him go past you again and again and again, doing the same thing. And that was kind of Ripley. That's what he'd do. He just sort of head down, drop that shoulder. He was just away, and it's like, my God, how's he done that again? But he did, and Wilcox very similar. Wilcox had more goals in him. As you say, he scored about 4 or 5, but the crosses they were delivery were absolutely pinpoint, meat and drink for like strikers like Sutton and Shearer. And particularly Shearer as well. He could bang them in from anywhere. You know, it's often, if it hadn't gone to the wingers, like so would thread a through ball through the midfield, Shearer would latch onto it and just draw the keeper and just slot it past him. It was just absolutely incredible. As you say, Graham, it was almost carbon copy week in, week out, but just incredibly consistent.
On the style of football, I mean, it was, and I mean this in a complimentary way, it was very simple football. There was no, Blackburn weren't hiding from their opponents. It was just they were better at pretty much most of their opponents at that particular style of play, which was very progressive, very aggressive, and getting the ball forward as often as possible.
Yeah, they were direct, but not in a hoofball way. They were the Liverpool way, as you used to call it, the pass and move thing. They were very much based on that, and also Sutton and Shearer worked hard up front. Not just obviously when their team had the ball, but when they didn't, they were quite aggressive against the defenders, like getting stuck in tackles. That allowed the midfield to move up a little bit as well. You know, they had no fear really. So yeah, it was the amount that they provided to that team. You can't just measure it in terms of goals. It's just the all-round effort that they put in.
You know, I think this side is arguably one of the last sides, or most recent sides, which has done it really with an almost fixed starting 11. So when we look back at those title-winning sides in the 80s, you know, Aston Villa doing it with kind of 12 players virtually, but you could name the side, couldn't you? It's kind of, and I think by the time we get into the 90s, it becomes a much more of a squad game already by that stage. But you know, when you look through that Blackburn side, there's a whole string of them who play, you know, 38, 39 league games in there, from Tim Flowers and Colin Hendry, and so it's a really settled side, and
yeah,
actually it kind of reminds me a bit of that Everton side that won, which we talked about previously, which again was pretty settled, and then you just saw Alan Harper coming in every now and then, and you know, there were one or two changes in it, but it's broadly the same side each time. Yeah,
and they, as you say, they did have they were quite looking at their ever-presence were basically the spine of the team. You say it's Flowers and Hendry, Lasso, Sherwood, Ripley. Shearer played every game, I think. Sutton played nearly every game. But they did have people who could step to the mark, obviously, when, you know, if anyone did have to drop out, obviously, the likes of Warhurst could fill in. You know, you have Mike Ewell coming on, he only started 2, but he made about 10 sub-appearances, something like that. Atkins was pretty much, not an ever-present, but pretty much an ever-present. Henningberg, he was there all the time. So, yes, it's they have got a big squad, but they didn't use that many players out of that squad. When what you say the starting 11 would drop out, then you'd have pretty much the same players filling in for them.
Yeah, you've got 12 players in that squad, and it's a fairly big squad, and it's a squad that has this reserve goalkeeper to Tim Flowers called Shay Gibbon as well. So they've got in the squad, but only 12 players will make 18 Premier League appearances or more. Like you said, Graham, it's fairly consistent in terms of the team selection each week. And this is going back to when there was only 2 substitutions as well. Back in the days when you can have 2 substitutions. And one of those subs that played quite a bit as well and came on, who I really liked. Actually, I think he started a few games as well. And that probably doesn't get mentioned, probably only in the circles of Blackburn Rovers, was the defender, Ian Pearce, who I thought was an exceptional player, a really, really classy player, but kind of gets overlooked because there's so many other superstars in this football team.
Didn't he go to West Ham after that?
Yeah. He definitely played at West Ham, and I think, if memory serves, we need a West Ham fan to help with this. They would appreciate him as well. I think he was just one of those quality players.
Speaking of West Ham, they had Tony Galen at the start of the season, didn't he? I think he was first choice right back at the start of the season as well. I think he only had that one season, but I think he retired at the end of that season. I seem to recall that they offered him something. I don't know if it was like working with a youth team or something as well as playing, but he just decided he didn't want to. He said, no, my body's had enough. And he said it was always something he regretted. He always said he gave it up too early. I guess another player he had as well was Robbie Slater, who later went to West Ham. And he was, again, he particularly at the start of the season, he played in the midfield a lot, and he was really, really pacey player, as I recall. Quite aggressive, quite pacey, really useful.
So this Blackburn side they get themselves, especially after the Cantona Sunday sending off and subsequent ban, they go on another good run, and they position themselves remarkably well for completing what's going to be their destiny. You know, this side, Chad Walker spent all this money, and this has to come. You know, they're destined to win it. They've been comfortably best, so they get 5 games out from the end of the season, and it should be a procession, isn't it? But Jamie, it's a bit tighter than it should be, isn't it?
I mean, Dick's absolutely right. Just to go back on the positions in January when Cantona's banned, Blackburn had great form, but United were 13 points clear at the point before Cantona had done his kung fu kick, and when United had just gone to Ewood Park and won 1-0. But yeah, this run is incredible. It's 3 months later into April, there's a complete role reversal, and Blackburn are now the team in the strongest position. So with 5 games to go, they look like they are going to win their first Premier League team, become the first town to do it. But yeah, I think the pressure gets to them.
I like the way Jamie corrected the correctors.
Yeah. Try to do it in a very complimentary way. I didn't want to find a forest problem. Just wanted to get the rest.
How dare you present facts to me?
I apologise. I don't mean to be rude. I really don't. It's just important that
destroying my memory with facts. How dare you?
If we dispel the Cantona thing, it really screws up our ranking at the end of this thing.
Yes, so Blackburn lose 3-2 to Man City. They get a result against Crystal Palace, but then they lose at West Ham as well. And then you get these last 2 games, and so there's a big home win. Get over the line against Newcastle 1-0. Shearer with goal number 34 maybe for the season at that stage, and it all sets it up for a final day climax. So now we haven't had, I don't think we've had one of these probably since the Arsenal Liverpool George Graham title. I think I can't quite remember another one in that period. You might be able to correct me, Jamie, but it definitely sets it up for the final day. And of course, fans of narrative will everything is sort of made extra special by, of all places, that Kenny Dalglish might take a team to go and win the title would be at Anfield, wouldn't it? Everything's written. Liverpool are just going to roll over because are they going to spoil Kenny Dalglish's day in favour of giving Man United the title? Jamie, were you confident of the Liverpool were going to behave?
No, not at all. I mean, obviously, history plays tricks on the mind, so I can't 100% with my hand on my heart say how I was feeling at the time, but I was pretty certain that Liverpool were not going to do their greatest rivals, with the greatest respect at the time, Manchester United, any favours whatsoever. And United had to beat West Ham. That was the key thing as well. Manchester United going to this game 2 points behind Blackburn. Blackburn do need a win to secure it. A draw could have then gone down to goal difference. And whilst Blackburn Rovers had the greater goal difference most of the season, United went and smashed Ipswich 9-0 in March and just made up a goal difference and then took a lead. So Blackburn didn't have the luxury of goal difference as well. They had to secure the game themselves, and a draw would have put them in a situation where it was out of their hands, but safely in the hands of Ludek Maprosko.
Yes, so Blackburn do lose to Liverpool on that last game. They
take the lead as well. We shouldn't forget they take the lead against Liverpool. So total respect to Liverpool, because as Dick said, the spoiler alert, Liverpool come back. I think John Barnes equalises.
I've only watched it back
couple of times, and there's that kind of eeriness about it, like where the Liverpool fans don't really want to celebrate, but they're kind of celebrating sure they should do. It's quite bizarre.
Jamie, they were celebrating. I remember that game. They were celebrating. I mean, they had skin in the game, obviously. And I remember them singing. They were going, "Where's your title gone? Where's your title gone?" And they were all and singing, "Always look on the bright side of life." No, with no sarcasm whatsoever, obviously.
But I do remember Jamie Redknapp's expression when he smashed in that brilliant free kick at the end of the game, which gives Liverpool the victory. For a man who's just scored an absolute worldie from a free kick, he looks a bit gutted.
Not half as gutted as the people behind the goal, the Blackburn fans.
Right.
in the Andy Road end, you could just see the faces like, "Oh my God, this," and then within seconds, that's all changed.
It is all changed, and the game at Upton Park, which finishes in a draw, no small feat down to Ludek McCloskey. I think he probably has his greatest game of all time. What a way to choose the best game of all time. The game at Upton Park finishes around about a minute and a half before the one at Anfield. So Blackburn are already champions, regardless of Redknapp scoring or not. Blackburn are already champions because United have failed to beat West Ham.
We should probably put into perspective, Jamie, I reckon you can probably do this, can't you? So this is one of the last times, isn't it, that someone interesting's won the title, other than Leicester. Sure. I mean, pretty much after this, it's just like a big six club, isn't it? Pretty much relentlessly after this point.
Yeah, it is. Leicester and Blackburn and Liverpool are the anomalies when it comes to the Premier League because they've only won it once, where all the other teams have won it multiple times. So, yeah, those three teams are the anomalies when it comes to winning the Premier League. But, yeah, Blackburn Rovers is the only town to win the Premier League. All the rest of from cities.
Niche town knowledge there. This is the second time you tried to put that in. I don't think it's going to make the edit.
Yeah, well, I'm just trying to invite you back into your kind of town statistics you had, earlier in season one.
New towns.
I can't remember what they were now, but they were some kind of bizarre town statistics, and whether there's a rabbit hole there that we can travel down, and get and join in with some town-related statistics.
This is my analysis of of how the UK new towns of Harlow, Telford, and Co had fared in the FA Cup. Important analysis work that everyone needs. So it is an incredible achievement, and it does cap off Jack Walker's dream. We have seen so many people attempt similar since that I don't think you can underestimate it. It doesn't necessarily create a lasting legacy, does it?
It's a bit of a curious one, actually. I think the next season they're in the Champions League, and that affects the form. I think adversely. Just trying to keep up with that. They go out in the group stages of that league position. They end up, is it 6th or 7th? Actually, yeah. Dalglish has moved upstairs by then, I think. Oh, he's resigned, so he got Ray Harford in. It was his number 2, but kind of a bit like the Colin Harvey syndrome at Everton after Howard Kendall.
Yeah.
It was just a terrible first half of the season he had. I mean, they did recover, but obviously from where they were to finish 7th, it was really an achievement in itself. But obviously compared to the previous season, a disappointment.
There's not a big investment in terms of players as well. Now, we've already mentioned they've got a really settled and strong first 11 and a few that are coming in to support. But they don't really invest massively, considering they're champions and they're going into the European Cup, which is going to add at least another 6 fixtures to their season. They don't really invest. I think Matty Holmes is the only one that comes in the summer transfer window. They do. This was in the days where you could sign players all year round, right up until March. I think, can you imagine that now? So they do bring players in throughout the year, right up until March. But Matty Holmes is the only summer investment. But they did have the opportunity to sign both Christophe Dugarry and Zinedine Zidane from Bordeaux at the time. Both players came to Blackburn. Both players met with Jack Walker. Both players were interested in signing, but it never happened. And one of the myths, I think it's a myth, because I want to give Jack Walker as much respect as possible. One of the other myths that's come out of this is Jack Walker questioned why they'd want to sign a young 23-year-old Zinedine Zidane when they've got Tim Sherwood. I know there's a joke in there, but I can see the logic, because Tim Sherwood was a very, very good player, very different to Zidane, but then who is the same as Zidane in midfield? Not many. But yeah, they didn't invest. I think they had the opportunity to invest, and Zidane, another what-if moment. Can you imagine a midfield of Zinedine Zidane and Roy Keane? That would be incredible.
Yeah, they got a guy with Flitcroft instead. And here's the thing, right? Sorry, Graham. Just to two players who went out of their team, out of their squad, were Atkins and David Batty.
Yeah.
Now, you've lost. It's surprising how few games Batty actually played for Blackburn.
Yeah.
Back. But you've got a midfield stalwart in Atkins, and you've got a useful midfielder in David Batty, who obviously went on to have a great career with Newcastle and Leeds after that. So you have lost a little bit of stability there. But he did bring quite a lot of guys in. So say it's Flitcroft, Coleman, Lars Bohinen was another one. But you're talking against the likes of Dugari and Zidane. With the greatest respect to those guys, they're not Ducati or Zidane, are they?
Could, of course, all have been slightly different if Sven-Göran Eriksson had gone ahead with his deal to replace Ray Harford, I think it was, or Tony Parks must have been doing one of his many caretaker manager jobs at that stage. So Eriksson had agreed to join them at the end of the season from Sampdoria, and then I think he goes back on his word, and they get Roy Hodgson instead, which, Hodgson has a couple of, the first year's okay, but it's one of a few sort of, Hodgson seems to have divided, things have either worked or not worked for him for English clubs, I think, generally.
I think losing Shearer didn't help him, because he went to Newcastle, I think it was the season before Hodgson came in. He'd gone to Newcastle at 15 million. So that wasn't that. Obviously, he still had something there, but the team's starting to break up by then. I think they got Martin Darlene in, who we've been after, funnily, as well as Shearer, funnily enough. But we were never going to get Shearer. It's largely the same squad, but you've got no depth now. You start to see some of the key players go. At the same time, you're starting to there are players in these squads where you look down and you think, oh my goodness, did he play for them? And it's starting to come through around about this time. This is the strange thing. The same with Blackburn. They sort of go on for the next decade. They go on a bit of a roller coaster ride. They go down, they're up and they're down, they're up and they're down. Usually coinciding with a change of manager, and that sort of sets the pattern until the Venky's come in. But yeah, I'm just looking at the squad that came in for the Harford and Parks. James Beattie was in there. Yes. Would you believe?
Yeah.
Damien Duff was there. He started coming through then. Yeah, absolutely incredible. Some of the players they had who never sort of. Well, Damien Duff obviously did at Blackburn, but Beattie at Blackburn didn't really register with me.
Don't you think winning that they do go to? I mean, they actually get relegated in '99, but don't you think that Premier League title that they get in '94, '95, it just kind of gives them a bit of credit in the bank for the next X amount of years, because it's going to be within recent living memory for a lot of players, and obviously Jack Walker's got a pull, and clearly Jack Walker's Blackburn are probably paying better salaries than most teams at that particular moment. So having that Premier League title allows them to attract the bigger and better players. It just seems strange to me that they didn't do that at the point of when they just won the Premier League, when they're going into the Champions League, and when their manager is going and moving into the upstairs role. And it's great credit that they try to roll over the coaching staff, but it's clearly one of those moments that just doesn't work. Like I said, Ray Hartford doesn't stay there for long. And I think even Tony Parks is number 2, and he comes back to Blackburn at some point as well as a coach. But yeah, I don't think Blackburn capitalised on their credit. You know, this was a time when only the top team in England qualified for the Champions League. It wasn't the top 2, 3 or 4 as it is now, or 5 in some cases, rare cases. This was the top team. So this is an opportunity for anyone with the ambition of playing European football, European Cup football, to go to Blackburn Rovers, and it just doesn't seem to happen. And other than the Zidane Dugarry, I don't really understand what the strategy was for Blackburn at that particular moment, why they didn't invest in playing stuff.
I think whilst you could maybe lay a bit of blame at Jack Walker's door for that, you have to give him credit for, I think only the whole of football's happy that he put the kibosh on Alan Shearer joining Man United.
He certainly did.
I think if there's one thing that endears me even more to Jack Walker, it's the small-minded local rivalry in the top of it. Don't let that get. So yeah, he's not joining them.
I don't know if you've heard Shearer talk about that story as well. There's a bit more to that, because obviously he's very, very serious about joining Manchester United, but clearly he's torn to join Newcastle as well, which he does. Jack Walker's already said, I'm only going to let you go for 15 million, and that is the case, and that's another British record. Shearer meets both Keegan and Ferguson on the same day in a house in Cheshire. I think it's something like one of the players' sister's house in Cheshire. And he meets Keegan first and has a big chat. Then he meets Ferguson second. The very first question Ferguson says to Shearer, am I seeing you first or second? And then Shearer says second. I've already seen Kevin Keegan. And Shearer says at that point, you can see Ferguson's like given up. He's like, well, I'm going to try, but I know you're not coming now because I needed to see you first. There's a bit more to it than just Jack Walker saying no. I think Shearer would have had the mental strength to kind of push the United deal if he wanted. But you're right. I think Jack Walker is petty-minded, local rivalry is in the way of blocking that move.
I think it's Shearer's hometown club as well, isn't it? So he's kind of, that's going to be a big draw for him.
Absolutely. He made the right decision for both Alan Shearer, Newcastle United and Manchester United.
Definitely so. That I suppose we should probably also, in that glorious post period, we should probably flag one of football's greatest highlights, which is the Grand David Batty fight.
Yes, against Sparta Prague in Moscow. Not Sparta, Spartak Moscow in Moscow, clearly. Yeah, they just, it's over within moments, isn't it? But it's just incredible. 2 teammates have a brawl. And the referee doesn't, I think this is the one where the referee doesn't actually book or send them off. Have I got that right?
Yeah, I don't think he does. I think the Kieran Dyer one they're sent off, aren't they? But I don't think either are sent off in this.
Yeah. I remember a very long time ago David Harvey for Leeds swinging a punch at Gordon McQueen. That Beyonce. And again, the referee went over to them and just said, stop this, lads. And that was that.
Happy days.
There's been a few though, isn't it? And there has been a few. The one that always comes to my mind is a training ground incident with John Hartson and Pearl Berkovic.
Yeah.
Hartson kicks Berkovic in the face whilst he's on the floor.
That one definitely feels. Excellent. Okay, well, we should probably get to ranking this Blackburn Rovers side, I think. So as a quick reminder, we have 5 categories of greatness, from all-time greats to the top through to true greats. Our middle category, a touch of greatness, edge of greatness, and blink of greats. Jamie, I always like to give you first stab at this. Where are you going to go with these?
First and foremost, I am a fan, not that I had any knowledge of who he was, but a fan of what Jack Walker did. Local boy, done well with his taking over the family business and sheet metal working, and then a point of when he's getting towards the end of his working career. He's not a young guy when he invests in Blackburn Rovers, and I think he'd been helping the club for many years before that in terms of ground repairs and possibly giving money to fund other transfers on the side. I love what Jack Walker's done here, and I think he's a world apart from the football ownership or custodians that we have in our game today. And I'd love to see more Jack Walkers, but I don't think football is going to be going back to that particular world anytime fast. Blackburn Rovers assembled a brilliant team with Kenny Dalglish. I think Kenny Dalglish, as a coach, is an absolute exception. I think Blackburn Rovers is probably his best moment. I know he won the double with Liverpool as a football manager, but I think to take Blackburn, a team that's not Liverpool, it's a town, out of the second division and to get them challenging, playing a free-flowing, progressive, attacking, exciting football to win the Premier League is no mean feat. Shearer and Sutton, I mean, why don't BBC Match of the Day have Shearer and Sutton on more often? I mean, one goes on 5, one goes on Match of the Day. Makes sense. Just get the SAS back together, get the band back together. Come on, guys. But all of that said, it is fleeting. As we talked about, the legacy isn't great for this particular team. And within 4 seasons, they're relegated and they're a yo-yo team after that until the Venkies take them over, and then they don't really come back into the Premier League from that point. So I think this is a classic case of the third tier touch of greatness.
Deck, what about you?
Yeah, I think let's go through it first. I mean, firstly, I'm slightly disappointed that during this we didn't touch on Blackburn's hot run that season, which ended very quickly. They went out to Newcastle very quickly. Newcastle went out to the eventual winners of the trophy, whose name I've forgotten.
Who that was?
Yes, okay. I'm also slightly disappointed, Graham, that you didn't put in the Oxford United connection.
Oh,
there is a small one. So they had a guy playing for them when they're in the second tier called Jordan Rhodes.
Of course, yeah.
And he played 4 games for?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oxford
Oxford United. We had him on loan from Ipswich. We also have, I should have flagged the Derek Fazackley, who is Blackburn Rovers, I think, all-time appearances record holder, who's been, he was sort of assistant manager and scout and general consultant at Oxford for the last, more than a decade or so. So there's another connection there.
There you go. Got the Oxford references in.
Yeah, what?
I couldn't wrap up without getting those in.
I know what is going on in this podcast. I mean, Graham's not getting an Oxford United reference in, but the guests are now. It's just like,
I love it.
The whole thing is growing into, it's out of control. This Oxford United thing's out of control.
So let's get back to the show, shall we? So yeah, again, a little bit comparable to the Bolton one I did with you, except that Blackburn actually went and won something. And yes, that was a lot of that was down to the investment from Jack Walker. But as we touched on, he was a millionaire owner, yes, but his heart was in the right place. He wanted his hometown club to be, compete with the best. He did a lot for that club, and they actually, unlike Bolton, they did actually win something. When you look at the setup they had, potentially could have had, and some of the players that went through their ranks, did they win enough, really? When you look at it, and as I say, they had the seesaw period where you had Hodgson came in. He looked as though he was going to take them back up to competing at the very top level again, and that fell through. Sooners came in, same thing. Mark Hughes came in, same thing. So they'd have these flashes, but they couldn't really sustain it, and they did stay in the top flight for a very long time. But in the end, that was their crowning achievement, was their only achievement. So I'm very much minded to go with Jamie on this one and say that we've got we're in the middle tier. We've got the touch of greatness, I think.
I think I have to say I'll be boring, but I think I am inclined to agree. I went to Ewood Park for the first time last month, and there is a statue of Jack Walker there, and the Jack Walker stand. Jack Walker's name is everywhere at that club, and I am struck by the mismatch between how Jack Walker was perceived in the rest of football and how he's perceived Blackburn. He's a hero there, and you can understand why. And when we look at a collection of owners that we have had, at all our clubs, amongst others, let alone across the rest of football.
Tell me about it.
We can really seriously underestimate a guy who fundamentally had a dream, backed it with money, was a genuine supporter of the club, and attempted to establish a legacy whereby it would continue. So obviously you had the Jack Walker Trust. So even after Jack Walker died, you had the backing was still there. I don't really know the ins and outs of it, but I don't think that has necessarily ended out as he would have wanted necessarily. I don't know. But obviously, ever since the Venkis have been involved, that hasn't really worked as they might have hoped. And I think there's just a sort of an acknowledgement that, even at the time where it seems like, how on earth is anyone going to compete with the wealth of Jack Walker? These things are just fleeting, aren't they? And like 10 years later, it's, it was Roman Abramovich, and then it's Man City and Abu Dhabi, and then it's going to be Chelsea's million or Birmingham's millions, whoever it is. So these things go round and round. But I think as a side, that it's a wonderful season. I'm not sure they fully go on to fulfil their potential, but for one season, it's not the most glorious football. I don't think people go back and savour it for like they would maybe that Howard Kendall Everton side. But as winning that title against even a Cantona-less Man United is quite something. So I think touch greatness is good. So Jack Walker's Blackburn Rovers, touch of great. There we go. Gotta say, another bit of Northwest reference.
Yeah, we didn't talk about what we're talking about now. It's a generalization, but we like this subject, Graham. Kit. They're one of the few teams that plays in halves. Is it called half and half? I know there's teams that play in quarters, but
quarters. I think it's half and half.
Yeah, half white from the shirt. I mean, it's almost like they've taken their own shirt, which is white, and their away shirt is blue, and they've just ripped them both up and sewn the two together. But there's not many teams that play in the half and half colours, and Blackburn Rovers have that wonderful blue and white kit.
I'm struggling to think of any. I'm sure there's a few, but I'm just struggling to think of them.
It is trademark.
There's a lot that are away like that. I do.
Yeah, Liverpool had one, didn't they?
Did they?
Yeah, they had a white and green one.
Oh, they did.
Half.
I think that was about the same time that United had their yellow and green one for Newton Heathrow.
Trying to think whether Blackburn Rovers have ever had a home kit that isn't blue and white halves. So, like, there's a degree to which you are a bit stymied by that because, if you play in blue. I mean, Everton has to be blue, but you can do fancy things with the collars and bits and pieces. I'm not sure Blackburn Rovers fans are kind of waiting with bated breath during the summer. We're going to be in Harbs this year.
You know what, Graham?
I think it's fairly sacrosanct.
You're absolutely right. There's a wonderful website called historicalkits.co.uk, which I use quite a lot. And Blackburn Rovers have half and half right from 1878. I think there's a little kit history in the very beginning where they got the cap, but let's exclude that one. It is half and half, blue and white for their entire history. Bizarrely, though, the white and the blue does tend to switch sides from.
Like this.
It's not consistently on the right hand side. It will switch with white. And just looking at the history, that seems to be the case right through 1964. It stops switching, and then the blue is consistently on the left hand side. But before that, it was switching around.
I was going to say, was there any correlation between success with the blue being on one side or the other? It'd be an interesting exercise, that, wouldn't it, to see how consistent they've been, depending on what side the blue and white was on.
But yeah, I think 2018, 2019 they switch the blue back over. Wow, this is too good.
This is a rabbit hole and a half, isn't it?
I need to spend a bit more time on this to work out what teams are playing hard and also why they switched it around in the early days.
So I'm going to give them much more credit than I'm prepared to open up and own my mistakes here. There's the switching colours. There are all quite a few different shades of blue in there as well. So, maybe there's a bit more variety there than I was giving them credit for. And the tiny bit of red trim every now and then as well.
Does this affect the overall ranking?
Yes. Well, we should leave it there. Declan, thanks so much again.
Pleasure, guys. Always a pleasure. Never at all.
Good stuff. Jamie, thank you. We will be back next time. I think we're going to be doing Argentina 1978 World Cup. Rio Kempes. Luque, I think he played for them. Daniel Passarella. It's all coming back to me now. Oh.
Peter Notte. I mean, what an absolute legendary man. The socialist managing the
juntas, yes.
No wonder he smokes so much.
So we will be back next time with Argentina 1978. Until then, we'll see you soon.